Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland, Incorporated.
Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Cleveland, where we are devoted to creating conversations of consequence that help democracy thrive. It's Friday, December 13th, and I'm Carrie Carpenter, Senior Vice President of Community Philanthropy and Engagement at Huntington, and I'm proud to introduce today's forum, which is part of the City Club's Building Success series in partnership with Huntington. When I think about entrepreneurs who serve as community champions, Connie Hill-Johnson and Kevin Johnson take this role to another level. They are each leaders in their own right, but together, they're even stronger. Their lifelong investments in economic development, volunteer efforts, and philanthropic contributions have left an indelible mark on Northeast Ohio. Today, we have the privilege of hearing directly from them on the progress made and the work yet to be done, particularly concerning BIPOC entrepreneurship, philanthropic investments, and community leadership. Connie Hill-Johnson has been owner and managing director of Visiting Angels Senior Home Care for more than 20 years. Since 2022, Connie has served as the chair of the board of the Cleveland Foundation, the first Black woman elected to the position, and where I've had the honor of serving under her leadership. She also served as co-chair of the successful citywide Cleveland Reads campaign with the Cleveland Public Library. Kevin Johnson is managing partner at Next Gen Interactive, LLC, a technology consultancy. He has held countless roles over the years in areas of engineering, IT, and management here in Northeast Ohio and across the globe. And his community leadership includes serving as the past chair of the board of COSI. Together, Connie and Kevin were instrumental in producing the Soul of Philanthropy in Cleveland in 2019 and also launched the Cleveland Black Equity and Humanity Fund. Moderating the conversation is Russ Mitchell, anchor and managing editor at WKYC. If you have any questions for our speakers, you can text them to 330-541-5794, and City Club staff will try to work it into the Q&A portion of the program. Members and friends of the City Club of Cleveland, please join me in welcoming my friends Connie Hill-Johnson and Kevin Johnson. Russ, over to you.
Karen, thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for coming out today. Connie and Kevin, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
I know if I just kind of step back and let you guys go, you can talk for an hour and a half, but I'm told I have to moderate this, so here we go. Been big fans of both of you, obviously, for quite some time. But let's talk about giving back and where the concept came from for both of you. Connie, I'll begin with you. Why is it important, and where did this come from?
Wow, it would probably take me back to how I grew up in a family that just always served and did for others. We didn't talk about it outwardly, but you just do for those in need. I clearly remember things growing up when my mom would say things to my brother, like, go down the street and rake Mr. So-and-so's leaves, and you better not ask him for any money, things like that. And so just doing for others is a part of how I was raised. And I know we're gonna get into the whole philanthropy thing a little bit later, but when you think about how we gave or how we continue to give, it's all philanthropy. And so I'm a service person, and it just comes naturally for me to give to others.
You're right, we're going to talk about that word in just a minute. But Kevin, let me ask you, where does this come from, this concept of giving back?
For me, unlike Connie, it was probably learned. I did not have that familiar family experience. We were just very focused on trying to make sure we got through. And so it was really life experiences that really had a feedback with me, whereby philanthropy ended up being one of what I call a dynamic number of pillars. For me, it really evolved over time into faith, family, finance, and philanthropy. And that's kind of a dynamic pillar because those are not standalone legs on the stool. They're very dynamic. They interrelate. So philanthropy ended up being something that was learned, but also understanding how I could be a difference maker and how I could help create some of the outcomes that I think are important.
Again, having heard you both speak, you talk about the importance of giving back. Let me ask you that aspect of it. And Kevin, I'll start with you. Why is it important for people to do that?
So I'm going to say that what's important for me is the whole issue of what difference did you make, right? My view of success isn't complete if it only includes me. So the issue becomes, why be all dressed up with all of this background and all of these experiences and all of these, whatever you want to call it, if you didn't really make a difference that included others. And so that's kind of a motivating factor for me. It is an inclusive perspective with respect to giving back, with respect to creating what I call not moments, but movements, enduring value. That's kind of where I'm at. Connie will tell you I don't like doing just some one-off. What's the connective tissue? Mm-hmm. What's the leave behind? What's the long-term value? As a strategist, that's kind of how my head thinks and how I look at it. And so I like to make sure that if I'm engaged, it's going to make a difference.
Interesting, your engineering background comes into play here, as you said. It's fascinating to watch that at work.
That too. It's a process and trying to figure out how to put things together and create something.
Yeah, kind of importance.
Yeah, and I have to say this too. I'm so happy you mentioned his engineering background because we stop, Kevin, because we have jokingly spoken about his technical background, engineering, technology, and I'm the liberal arts young lady, and it took a while for Kevin. See, there he goes. He's rearing back in his seat. It took a while for Kevin to, I think, appreciate this liberal arts girl and her involvement in the community and her desire to give back. And he says to me one day, I was speaking somewhere, talking as I usually do, and he says, I get it now, why you're so good at what you do. That's that speech background at Case Western Reserve. And I said, oh, no. You poo-pooed my liberal arts degree for years and years. Now you're giving it some value. Right. But it is because of that liberal arts degree. And my being this extrovert, the importance of making an impact. And when it's all said and done, and we're probably in the second half of our season of living, we're older than most people think we are, that the importance of making an impact. When I'm long gone and people mention my name, I want them to say that she stood for something and she made an impact and it's still here. And that's what drives me the most with anything that I'm involved in, that when my name is lifted up, people will be able to put their finger on what I contributed to that hopefully is long lasting.
Wow. Certainly. Now, you have said, Kevin, were you going to say something there? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay, just making sure. No. Just make. I don't want to get in trouble.
I want to be on point.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Now look.
Moving along. Connie, you have said, and I'm going to quote you here, you don't have to be Oprah to give. Each of us can make an impact. Now, let's go back to that word philanthropy. It can be intimidating for some people. You hear that word and you think perhaps something that you can't be a part of. How do you demystify that word to most people?
I think, and you've hit on a hot button for both of us, but when you think of the word philanthropy, I always go back and remind people, and I have even said this, and Carrie might remember, and Randy, who's on the board at the Cleveland Foundation, the root word of philanthropy means love of mankind. That's what it means. Mm-hmm. That's what it means. If you love people and humankind and mankind, then you will give. And that giving may look different. And yes, we need all of your dollars. Please don't forget that. Mm. But particularly in our community, and I hope you don't mind me going there, philanthropy, we have always been philanthropists in the African American community. We didn't call it that. We didn't know how to spell the word probably when we were young. Mm-hmm. But we gave, whether you're giving in Sunday school, whether you're giving to the little man down the street and raking his leaves. And so for me, when I think about service and giving, philanthropy is a wide tent. And there are many ways to be a philanthropist and to contribute to your family, your community, your inner circle, the nation. And I think we all need to be able to look at how we give, which may not always be monetary, but be able to proudly say, I'm involved in the arena of philanthropy, and I feel good about what I do.
Yeah, I think when a lot of people hear that word, they think, I don't have $1 million.
Exactly, exactly. I don't have $1 million either.
But in other words, another word for that, perhaps, I know you both talked about this, is helping as well. That's a big factor as well, right, Kevin?
Yeah. You know, with one of the business, with the Visiting Angels business, one of the things I always talk about is the fact that you have to really want to help people, because not every opportunity to add value involves money exchange. What it involves, though, in terms of value is imparting information that's going to help someone. And that's, so one of the businesses is even focused on just that. That's really what it's about. But broader than that, when I think about it, and for me, and when I personalize it, the whole issue comes back to, again, what difference did you make? And that's where that needing and that desire to help people becomes important. And the feedback that I get, not from, as I said earlier, not from this, but from the work and the outcomes that most of the time no one even knows about, and that's fine. I think for philanthropy, it's not necessarily just the name on the building, though there's a place for that. It really has more to do with what difference did you make in the time that you have. The clock that started for me, I'm not in control of. What I get to add input with is the dash between when I came in and when I don't know I'm going out. When I get up every day, the issue is, well, I woke up. What are you gonna do today? Sure. What's on the list, and trying to figure out the have-to-dos from the wants to the needs to do, and trying to make sure that takes place.
Do you mind if we give a real-life example of helping who's in this room today?
Absolutely.
Okay, I think you know where I'm
going.
where I'm going here. A young
good.
lady from Cleveland who represented Cleveland incredibly well in the Summer Olympics this year. $1 Million Mo McCain, who's here today. In fact, Mo was part of a City Club forum back in July that I was honored to moderate as well. And my bruises are still there, so all that kind of stuff. But it was a wonderful experience. But I know when you heard her story, you both jumped into action.
Yeah, and Kevin and I can't just take this on ourselves, because you know, I always want to take advantage of the opportunity to share that a lot of the work that we do, we have two other partners in Teleon J. Thomas and Cecil Lipscomb from the United Black Fund. But when we met this young lady through Noel, where's Noel? Noel's back there. Oh, yeah. And we met her through Noel and heard her story. Number one, she's from Glenville. We're from Glenville. Everybody knows that. And we knew what she was trying to do to raise money to get her family to go there. Yeah. And that was something that we just immediately wrapped our arms around. And so when I talk about giving back and making an impact, all I knew was this sharp young lady who had a brilliant talent didn't want to be over in Paris without her family. And I thought, how dare we not support her and raise money so that her entire family could go to Paris with her. And we were successful in doing that and really galvanizing the city. When I saw Morel's picture at Playhouse Square, I knew we had knocked it out the park. So again,
Yeah, it's an incredible story, incredible young lady. And thanks for coming today. I know these folks appreciate it, and so do I. I want to talk to you about something that's on the Soul of Philanthropy Cleveland website. And Kevin, we talked about this. In fact, Kevin said, I want you to go to this website and look at this statistic and talk about it. But it's fascinating. African Americans give 8.6% of their discretionary income to charity, more than any other racial group in America. African Americans donate 25% more of their discretionary income than do Americans of European descent. Nearly 2/3 of African American households give to charity more formally to the tune of $11 billion each year. So, Kevin, when you tell those statistics to people, I'm gathering some people are surprised by that. What do you say to them?
I believe part of our mission is to correct and then communicate the narrative properly. And one of the things that's important to us is to make sure that people understand that minorities, and particularly black people, we're not out here with a handout. We're doing a lot. We have a nature, I think it's in our DNA, to be philanthropists. We just refer to it in different ways. It is, yes, it is time, talent, and treasure. But getting the story straight and making sure that the legacy has to do with the facts is very important, because we have a way we have a way of distorting truths, all right, and painting narratives that are negative. I think very good at that. The Soul of Philanthropy and the work that we have done with the four of us is part of that. But the truth of the matter is, it hasn't just been the four of us. If it was just the four of us, we wouldn't have gotten anywhere. You know, I would guarantee that half of the people in this room have been involved with the Soul of Philanthropy as volunteers, because they share that mission. Anything that you see the Soul of Philanthropy, it's not just the four of us. It's all of the volunteers and the folks that come around. Brilliant people that bring their time and talent to the mission, and that's the Soul of Philanthropy, Cleveland.
Yeah. When you share those numbers with people, how do people react typically when you hear this?
They don't believe it, because again, as Kevin said, that narrative of people that look like me being on the receiving end and not on the giving end. One of the things that I will share is my heart for this work really started as I stood back and admired the work of Steve Minter, who was the CEO at one time of the Cleveland Foundation. And the last award, and I so wish Robin was here and she told us she had to be at an important meeting today. The last award Stephen Minter received was the night in, I think it was September 6th, 2019, when he was honored as a legacy philanthropist at our TSOP Clee reception. And he stood before 350 people and said he never thought he would see the day, and I'm paraphrasing, where he would see a group of folks who were givers and not the receivers. And I think a couple weeks later, he passed away. And so when you think of a legacy and the impact that he's had on many Clevelanders' lives, not just black folks, and even the work that I do at the Cleveland Foundation now, the journey that I've been on as board chair, I think of him often and wonder what he would be thinking now and saying and whispering in my ear during the times I'd want to have coffee with him. And so I view him as that person that I'm sure I would be seeking approval from, that I was on the right track in terms of the work that I do.
Yeah, as chairperson of the Cleveland Foundation, as we pointed out, the first African-American woman to hold that position. What has that role meant to you in terms of how you carry out your mission?
Yeah, I don't think I recognized at the beginning the largeness of this position. I'm just little Connie. And so when I was first approached about, throwing my name in to be the chair, I was just like, oh, no, I'm cool. I'm doing some committee work. And I don't think I recognized really the magnitude until I got into it. And it has been rewarding. It has stretched me. I think we have the best board in the city of Cleveland. Randall McShepard is here. Kerry Carpenter is here. And I don't think there are any other board members here. Just 15 of us. But we do the work. We do the work. And I think for me, I'd like to think I set the tone at the beginning by saying that everything we do at the foundation has to be viewed through a racial equity lens. When we made the decision, when we were sitting right down the street in the, where were we? In the Hannah building, the Hannah building, about moving to the city, it was that we were not moving to just plop a building in the city, that we wanted to be able to have an impact on the neighborhoods and the residents. And versus doing to the community, we wanted to do with the community. And so that's what got me excited about being the chair, was being from the community. Now I could really, really be able to speak up and be engaged in communities whose lives were, to a degree, similar to mine growing up. And it made the work for me more meaningful and more impactful. So I'm winding down my chairpersonship
You're staying on the board, though.
I'm staying on the board. I still have 3 more years, I think.
Yeah.
But it has probably been one of the highlights of my life.
Yeah. I mean, you both, yes. You both touched on this, but what does it mean for both of you personally to be a part of this community, a place where you are from, and you are giving back in such the way that you are? Kevin?
So, it's interesting. Both of us have lived other places for, a lot of time. So we've had an opportunity to see a lot of communities, a few cities, travel internationally, hang out, do work abroad. And it's interesting because we had a heart for Cleveland. And so economic development is right there as something that's critical in my work. You really don't see me in any other space other than those that have the opportunity to create the changes that are important. So it's sacrosanct to me. It's really part of the outcomes that I'm seeking and the ways that in which I go about it. I love working with people who are really focused on some of that type of thing. It's really important. It's rewarding to be part of those teams, part of those initiatives. So, there's a lot more that I can say, but I just kind of want to make sure that we get to everything that we want to get to, because this hour or half hour goes so quickly.
I professed to Justin and a few other people here that I was not going to out-talk my husband. So I am zipping it.
I do have to ask you this.
It's hard for him. It's hard. It's hard.
Connie from Glenville, that means a lot to you.
That's right. Yeah, it does. And let me first say, even though I have on red and black, I did not go to Glenville High School. I did go to Collinwood, but I grew up in Glenville, and my heart is there. We still kept, my brother kept our family home after my parents passed, and he said it wasn't about rental income. It was about legacy. It was about, this is the neighborhood we grew up in. I grew up on a phenomenal street, Thornhill Drive. And there are just such rich memories there. And so even when I drive by the house now, I think, you all better not tear up my mother's house in there. I think that when I drive by. But no, excited about the development that's occurring in the Glenville community, that will be coming, that hopefully as we see neighborhoods across Cleveland, particularly on the east side, we all know that the east side has not received all of the wealth and the dollars and the money as the west side has. And so we're starting to see that change. And I'm just excited about what's going on in the communities on the east side.
Mm-hmm. As business owners, Kevin, how does it affect what you do?
Oh my goodness. Just to be sure, how does what affect it?
How does what you do, how does the way you approach things affect as a business owner? How does that part of your life affect this part of your life?
It's interesting because one of the things that I talked about at the front end had to do with the interaction of faith, family, finance, and philanthropy. So what happens for me is that I'm thinking in terms of how to make those things work together so that 1 + 1 + 1 equals 400. It's not a linear situation. And so part of what I'm looking at, I spent, for example, a couple of months earlier this year looking at some tradable sector businesses to purchase. Why? Because there's a way with which we can create wealth and development by being engaged and buying some companies, putting capital stacks together, and doing it in a way that, I'm not looking to run businesses at this age and adding more. But I sure am interested in developing a portfolio and having people in place and letting them be able to do what I couldn't do at their age. So how does that work together? So that's where my head is, and that's how part of the business DNA that I have, part of the experience of putting products into production and all of that stuff that I've done, the mindset of business models and financial models, but also the mindset of philanthropy, but a different twist on philanthropy. And look, one of the things I talk to a lot of people about is that this is not some relay race. This is, if you can't run that race faster than I ran it, I didn't do a good job. That's how I look at it. We're all on a race, but the issue is the ability to share information and knowledge, and maybe more importantly, that on-ramp to where you want to be, not where I want you to be, where you want to be, and being able to help get folks there faster and have them be far more successful than I ever have been. If that perception of whatever we've done.
Sure. Visiting Angels you started Visiting Angels back 2001,
Yeah, 2002.
2002.
We were not married at the time. And I was living in St. Louis, where you're from.
Yes.
I was living in St. Louis. What did he do? What did he do? What did he do? So, long story short, I was unemployed, had been laid off, and I remember reading a Black Enterprise magazine that had an article about the number of minorities buying franchises. And I saw Visiting Angels listed. I did not grow up in an entrepreneurial family. I don't even think I had anybody in my family that owned a corner store or a gas station or a beauty salon. But I read about it, and my graduate degree is in healthcare. And so I'd been in the healthcare sector, more in acute care hospitals. And I saw this home care agency, and I knew that the demographics of people getting older and living longer, and the direction going towards more to home-based services. And I went back and forth. Do I stay in St. Louis and buy this franchise? Do I move to Cleveland? Back and forth and back and forth. And my dad had passed by then. So I packed up and I moved in with my mom. I was older and started in the basement. I sat in the basement with a desk and a space heater. And started my business and did all of my interviewing at Borders Bookstore at Severance. Remember, it's the Borders Bookstore at Severance. And that's where I interviewed all of my caregivers, and that's how it started in 2002.
Yeah. And how is that same question for you? How is it entrepreneurship help you do what you do here?
It has been utterly amazing. I mean, Kevin has said to me before, whoever thought you'd have a business or we'd have a business where you're employing people, because for many of my aides many are single women and single parents. This is their main income. This is how they feed their children, by serving seniors. So who would have thought you'd have a business where you're employing people, you're taking care of one of the most vulnerable populations that we have. It's either babies or old people. That's it. That's it, both ends of the spectrum. And you're able to make some money. Now, being an entrepreneur, and I do more probably to discourage people sometimes, because I don't think people recognize how hard it is. You will never work harder for yourself, for anyone else than you will for yourself. And people see the end, but no one was around when I'd get up at 3 in the morning to go pick up a caregiver because her car broke down. But I dare not tell the daughter that I don't have anyone to take care of your mother. And so those long hours and pouring in the young people, and in this business, you become like social worker, everything, because you're trying to keep your staff employed. But it has been rewarding. Probably the biggest reward for me, was being able to not only take care of my father-in-law when he passed, but my mom had one of my aides sitting right by her side in the same home I grew up in when she took her last breath. And so when I think about having Visiting Angels, if for no other reason, I was able to care for my own mom in our home, because we would have been like many families. What are we going to do? Does she have to go in a facility? Do we have to pass her around amongst the 4 children? But to be able to have this business, and I as a Christian, I just believe it was providential that God saw down the road, knew my mother was going to get dementia, and I had the business to be able to keep her at home.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing for me, and for Kevin's dad.
It is coming up on 12:30. So we're about to begin the audience Q&A. Once again, I'm Russ Mitchell, anchor and managing editor and moderator for today's forum. You're hearing from 2 of Cleveland's biggest champions who together embody the soul of entrepreneurship and community leadership. Let's introduce them one more time. Joining me on the stage is Connie Hill-Johnson, owner and managing director of Visiting Angels Senior Home Care, chairperson of the Cleveland Foundation, and Kevin K. Johnson, managing partner of Next Gen Interactive. We welcome questions from everyone, City Club members, guests, as well as those joining us via live stream at cityclub.org or on the live radio broadcast at 88.7 89.7 Idea Stream Public Media. If you would like to text a question for Connie and Kevin, please text that to 330-541-5794. Once again, that's 330-541-5794. And City Club staff will try to work that question into the program. The microphones are set up here. I think we've got a question. Yes.
So we're going to start with a text question, and this one is for Kevin specifically. If you have an incredible background and an impressive background in engineering, can you talk about what it means to see more people of color in STEM fields or leading STEM companies, particularly how it intersects with economic development?
So, you know, interestingly enough, I was talking about this earlier today with Cynthia. Cynthia's husband is a aerospace engineer at NASA and Native American. And we talk about the fact that, you know, for Native Americans, 1.5%, I believe, is the number that you told me, of engineers in this country are Native American. You know, if you're black, that number is really big. It's 3%. So the point is that, you know, there are opportunities in those fields. Now, with respect to philanthropy and tying these things together, and Russ, we talked about this earlier, we touched on it. For me, one of the things is, as I've kind of said, is how do these things work together. When I left Cleveland, and I was gone for almost 20 years, and you know, somewhat similar to Connie, I came back here in part because of care and caregiving. But when I left, I remember thinking, you know, I was young, I had an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering, and it was like, okay, they don't understand this, they. I was young. And when I came back, it was, okay, if I'm gonna be back here, it's gotta be about we. It can't be about they. And so I kind of figured out and took the time to figure out how this city worked, who was doing the work, and where the movement needed to take place, and what are the levers for that movement. I spent time actually doing that. One of the first things I got engaged with was something called the International Children's Games. And I did the technology plan for that. And true to what I said earlier, there's a big legacy presence of those games from 2004 that exist to this day. That a lot of people would never know about, and you shouldn't, because it has to do with security. But at the end of the day, that was a philanthropic endeavor. And it took the background that I had, both technology and business, and melding that and figuring out how to create something that wasn't here before, that had value, that endures. And so that's kind of how it worked together.
STEM. He was asking about STEM too.
But that is STEM.
But she wanted to know about getting more people in STEM.
See what I have to deal with. See what I have to deal with. So, you know, STEM is critical. But you know what? Some of the work that I do, I will tell you this. We are in a STEM mode now. STEM. I'm a STEM person as an undergraduate in mechanical engineering, but I'm a STEAM person when it really comes down to it. The arts are critical, and I don't cut that short. They're critical for creativity, they're critical for understanding, they're critical for melding everything together. So it all works together for me. It's not just about STEM, although that's critically important.
How do you do?
He did well.
Thank you, Russ. Thank you.
He did well. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The philanthropic statistics, Russ, that you presented were amazing. And speaking to that, the generational impacts of things, albeit negative or positive, I think about that. I grew up in the Heights area, and I've benefited tremendously from African American philanthropy in the form of coaches and mentors. And I think to myself, if they had a second job, they invested that money, the compound interest, you know, you name it. It's monumental what they gave to their communities, these philanthropic souls. So I want to talk about that a little bit, the generational negative impacts and the generational positive impacts. Thank you.
So Noel, Noel, you are always so deep. You know that. You're always so deep when I have conversations.
Okay, I'll follow it up. You know, Pastor Otis Moss said, Reverend Dr. Otis Moss Jr., he said that there hasn't been a scientific documentation and that is powerful because, you walk through the Cleveland History Center and you see that documentation. It's powerful. And if it's not there, it's like it didn't exist.
And it's interesting you bring that up because just this week, how many of you all have heard of the History Makers?
Of course.
So yours truly was contacted about a month ago. And on this past Tuesday, I spent 6 hours being interviewed by someone from the History Makers. And once again, I get this call. I'm like, well, what do you want to interview me for? And the woman said to me, and she has done everyone from Barack Obama to people like me. And she said, kind of touching on Noel, she said, if we do not archive and record the significant contributions and the works of African Americans, it will be lost for generations. Now, this is going to be a digital, if you go to historymakers, I think it's .org or .com, that's what she's been working on. I remember seeing her on 60 Minutes. And so I think about that in relationship to your question, is that how much have we lost? Because when she started asking me questions about not just my parents, but my grandparents and my great-grandparents, I could really only go back so far. Yeah. I really could. Yeah. And there's so much that we don't know. And when we think about the fact that we are where we are today because of our ancestors and how they gave and sacrificed, it's huge. And so to be a part of that project still blows my mind that you all will be able to log on one day and Google my name, and I'm going to be in the History Makers. Can you believe it?
It's a great program. Looking forward to seeing it.
Can you believe it?
Yeah,
Can you believe it?
A question right here. Hi.
Hi. Hi, Connie and Kevin.
Hi, Belva.
I've known you for a while, and you are a powerful couple. And I love the fact that you're focused on faith, family, finance, philanthropy, and service. So how do you find time for each other, and how do you nurture your relationship? Come on, spill the tea.
I got to tell you, that was not on my list of questions
yeah.
today.
Leave it to Belva. Leave it to Belva. Leave it to Belva.
So I recognize the cues. That was my turn to go to lead. It was subtle. She's smooth. Look, one of the challenges that we have is that pie only gets sliced so thinly, and it's sliced thin now. And I am so blessed. Part of it, I think, Belva, is you have to have someone that is a good match, a good fit. Because if it becomes work, it's problematic. And it's not work. Relationship for us is not really work. The other thing is, believe it or not, we laugh a lot. There's a lot of stuff that we just have a good time, and I think we enjoy each other's company.
No, I do. I happen to like him. I do. I happen to like him. I happen to like him.
The other thing is, one of the things Connie said, I said some things to her when we met, and she said some things to me. One of the things she said to me was that I like to travel. She had a whole list.
I did.
Of
women, don't you ever? I had a list of what I was looking for.
She had a list of prerequisites.
I did.
And
I did.
It was interesting because in the early days I was working a lot internationally, and girl was really busy. She's just busy. But when it was time to go somewhere really, if I was headed to Paris, all of a sudden she had time. Okay? She's ready to go. I'm headed to, here she comes. So, we have a lot in common. But our interests, because until she really became chair of the board of the Cleveland Foundation, a lot of people in the city didn't know we were married. Because her board work and her philanthropic into stuff, it was different from mine. Now, all of a sudden, I show up at a lot of the things that she's doing with, quite frankly, great seats, thank you. And it was an aha moment for a lot of people. And so I said, well, that's out now. So it's interesting, but it's experiential. It's humor. It's having someone that's compatible. You know, she's extremely. You wouldn't know this from talking to her, but you know, she's quite the outgoing person. And
Kevin. So, but Belva, I would say this. No, I really would say this. We enjoy each other. Yeah. You know, I remember, and because we married at a later age. I was not 25. And I remember thinking I wanted to be with someone where I enjoyed being with them. And I remember going to friends' homes, and she'd be in one room watching TV, and he'd be in another room, but they'd be watching the same thing. I'm like, and so I like being with Kevin. I think the other thing is my mother there are 3 girls in my family and a boy, and I remember this, and Kevin said, your mother was so wise.
Sage.
Said, pick a sport and learn it. You will always have something to enjoy with your husband. And so...
An overachiever that she is, 3 sports.
And so...
3.
And so those are the times, you know, he is not going to go to a Cavs game without me. How dare he, unless I have another commitment. I don't do the Browns in the wintertime, though. I don't do that. Yeah. Love baseball. I grew up with my father listening to the radio on the back porch and Herb Score. So when I lived in St. Louis, people couldn't believe I'd listen to the Cardinals in the car.
Wow.
But I'm a baseball fan. And so those are the things, Belva. And then on top of that, probably the crux is our faith. You know, we're up on Sunday mornings. Yeah. And we're at church. Unless one of us is sick. We did not turn into the virtual folks. You know, we're like, no, we are going for the fellowship and the word and to learn something. And so I think that, too, is really what knits us together. Even before we got out of the car today, I said, Lord, please don't let us make a fool of ourselves. You know, please show me when to be quiet and let my husband talk. In Jesus' name, amen.
She actually did. I mean,
I did. I did.
But when you have a wife who's such an extrovert, you know, I don't have to talk that much. It's an efficiency issue with me. I do have that undergraduate degree in mechanics. Just look.
He'll say to me in a heartbeat, Connie, Reader's Digest urgent.
Yeah,
give me the Reader's Digest urgent.
She's War and Peace. I'm Reader's Digest. You know. But patience is important. Yeah. Patience is important.
Kevin.
I have to listen.
Kevin.
I have to whatever, and then go from there. Go ahead.
She has a question.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
She has a question.
Like she said, question over there.
Good afternoon. We've got a text question. This is for Connie. So there are likely more little girls from Glenville that are looking to become entrepreneurs. What opportunities and challenges can they tap into today to make their journeys more successful?
Wow. You know, I said to someone who asked me the question of who was around when I started my business. And I had to really be honest and say, I don't remember one woman, black or white, who came to me and said, how can I support you? Now, granted, that was 22 years ago, but I don't, and I had to be honest. And so the first thing I would say to any young girl or woman is find someone. I think if I had a dollar for every woman I met at Unbar, which happens to be, shout out to Unbar, that's my favorite place, that I met for coffee, I'd be laying on the beach right now. Because I want to be able to give back in that fashion. Again, giving back. And so when people come to me, particularly young women, and say, I'm thinking of starting a business, or tell me more about franchises, or whatever, shame on me if I can't carve out a half an hour or 45 minutes to pour into someone, even though that was not the case with me. And so I would say to any young woman, be bold, walk up to a woman that you know has a business, and ask. You know, don't take up a lot of their time because entrepreneurs are busy. But say, can I buy you a cup of coffee? And can I grab 45 minutes just to ask you some questions? And as I start this journey, is it okay if I check in with you periodically? That's what I would say. That's what I would say.
The question right here. Hi.
Thank you to both of you. It feels like we're in a big family table with I think in the city of Cleveland, we are very connected with each other. It's not 6 degrees, but 1 degree of separation amongst each other. And I'm also one of those entrepreneurs who started in the basement with the heater.
Yeah,
yes,
it's cold down there.
We moved to the garage eventually. Yes. But I was wondering what philanthropy can do to be more attractive to people like us. Because I know all of us receive multiple requests to be in every board and everybody board's mother. And we receive many requests for all the checks that need to be collected. But what philanthropy can do to be very appealing for people of color?
So I want to make sure I understand you. You mean in terms of how philanthropy can support entrepreneurs, or rephrase that for me, because I want to make sure I understand what you're saying.
How philanthropy can get their act together.
Oh, well, okay.
So
okay.
More of us can be at their tables.
Okay, and that's an excellent question. And I think, again, and I'm always going to look at my peers, because Carrie, we talk about this, Randy knows we talk about this. We recognize that the tent needs to be broadened. We do recognize that. And in the political landscape we're in right now, and with the attack on DE&I, we have got to be singularly focused. I heard someone say the other day, as DE&I is getting dismantled and people don't want to use the word, and someone said to me on another board, said, we have to be more stealth. I love that word. We have to be more stealth at still getting the work done. And we have to invite more people that look like you and me to the table, the decision-making table. And we have to be intentional about it, which means we have to go into the communities and find people with a heart to serve and who have the lived experiences. I know on my board, and I'm gonna give Randall the shout out, when he spoke at the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner a couple of years ago, and you were honored, Randy told his story of being a black man in Cleveland. I am convinced that half the folks in that room had not seen that side of Randy. When Randy talked about being pulled over by the popo and having to go get cousins out of jail. And I said to him, thank you for doing that. Because people see, he was just on the cover of Code M as the, what was it called, Kevin?
The ultimate black man.
The ultimate black man. We salute you, Randy. We salute you. But those are the stories that people need to hear, because when they see people like me and Kevin or Randy, or people like you, and we're all dressed up and we're doing good work, there's a story behind where we are. And that's what makes us more valuable at the table, is because of our life stories. And so you're right. You know, in my position, those of us who sit on foundation boards, those of us who are involved in philanthropy, cannot lose that focus that we are here to serve the community. And in Cleveland, the community is predominantly black and brown in the city of Cleveland proper. And so we have to keep our eye on the ball in that regard.
I have a question over here.
Yes, thank you. I really appreciate the authenticity and transparency of this conversation. The question I have is, what does a more successful Cleveland look like to you? And what do we need to start doing or do differently or stop doing?
Get that to you.
All right. Well, I'll start first. That is such an interesting and layered question. There's so much to do. I will tell you that some of the things we hear today and some of the focus is on workforce and trying to make sure that there's enough work here for the opportunity and trying to match supply and demand. That's very important to growing what's going on here. Making sure that we talk about Cleveland as proud Clevelanders, not as some mistake. Cleveland's happening. If you've done some traveling anywhere in the country, let alone the world, Cleveland has an awful lot going for it, and it's very, very focused. I will tell you that I'm not a workforce person. I appreciate it. I know it's necessary. I'm all in. I'm working toward it. For me, it's about wealth building. That's what makes generational change. I'm not interested in job statistics. I'm interested in opportunities that move people up and give them opportunities for generational change. So, both, they don't exist separately, but the issue becomes what types of opportunities are we creating? And that's a big focus that I think is important when you look at economic development and actually moving communities forward. I was having a conversation with last night, and we were talking about that. But I think that's how I see it. You know, that's why I talked earlier about traded sector businesses and the like. It's important, you know, entrepreneurship is important, but I'm not interested in buying a job. I need to buy shifts, okay? You have to have shifts and that move the needle, not just self-employment. That is important as well. But sometimes, and we talked about it a little bit, we take a good look at what those businesses are and what the upside is, what gross margins are going to be. And sometimes people get into things and they realize that's the ceiling, and the ceiling maybe isn't what they thought it was going to be. Well, today in 2024, soon to be 25, you can research anything and you can figure out where you're going to be if you are fabulously successful. And if we take that look, sometimes we might have a change in direction as to which way we go, depending upon where our North Star is. So that's a lot of input, a lot of response to that, but it's a layered question, and the answer is not as simple as it seems in my mind.
We've got about 4 minutes left. We've got a question from beyond the room. Yes.
Absolutely. So this question actually comes from inside of the room from Mo. She says, what do you believe is the most effective way to inspire others to get involved in giving back? And what advice would you give someone who is looking to be an entrepreneur?
To give back, there are, pick a nonprofit. I said this to somebody the other day. When folks want to get involved, we have hundreds of nonprofits in the city, and they're all looking for support, whether it's serving on their board, whether it's volunteering in their office. Find a nonprofit where you have a heart for what they're doing. If you like literacy, Bob is back there. If you like literacy, if you like the arts, they're looking for support. They're looking for people. Because people will say to me or say to Kevin, you know, you're all on this board, you're on this board. I'm thinking, get on a nonprofit board in your community. You know, most nonprofits are struggling, you're right, with money. So if you happen to have a talent or a skill, give back that talent or skill. They can't afford to pay probably for what you're doing. And so that's a way to serve. So that's the first thing that I would say is find a nonprofit in your community, roll up your sleeves, and go to work.
Kevin, would you like to add to that?
Yes, but I could. But Connie does a great job.
Okay.
I'll just, you know, I see Ross back there. I just, you know, sometimes, and this is just me on panels, I don't, unless what I have to say is totally different or whatever, and with Connie, she's got it. She's
Smart man, that Kevin. Got about 2 minutes left. Yes.
All right, I'll try to keep it short. I appreciate your patience here. I'm losing my voice. But I think, so I'll give a quick preface, and it'll be a two-part question, but hopefully it'll be.
I got a minute and a half, my friend.
Okay. So I moved here, and I chose Cleveland with my wife. She was from the area, but I chose Cleveland. We chose Cleveland together, and moved here before the pandemic. One of the things that I realized when I came was that, and I met people like Andrew's father, who were a good representation of this, business leaders that were also very active in civic endeavors. And pretty quickly in those few months, I was trapped in a basement or in the house, you know, as the pandemic came, I kind of came to this realization that it's not like other places I've lived in Illinois or on the East Coast in DC. And to me, it felt like there's a different sense of duty to be involved in philanthropy and nonprofits here in Cleveland. So I guess as two people who are very worldly and have been experienced other places, I wonder, do you agree? That'd be the first part of the question. And if you do, then what do we attribute that to?
This may be a question we'll have to answer after the session.
That's right.
But I'll give you 30 seconds each if you would take that.
All I know is I always heard that Cleveland was a philanthropic city and people in Cleveland give. And they do. And I have not lived a lot of different places, but I've not seen the level of giving and involvement as I do here. When the foundation started, the COVID Rapid Release Fund, it was just our idea. The people who stepped up around that. And so I don't know what's in our DNA here. I really, really don't know. I'm glad you're here, but we're a special city.
Yeah.
And we need to stop hating on ourselves to the outside world.
Amen to that. I want to thank very much Connie Hill-Johnson and Kevin Johnson for joining us at the City Club today. Forums like this are made possible thanks to generous support from individuals like you. You can learn more about how to become a guardian of free speech at cityclub.org. The City Club would also like to welcome guests to the tables hosted by Amy Morgenstern of SOM BFA Friends, Birthing Beautiful Communities, the Cleveland Foundation, the Cleveland Public Library Foundation, Global Broadcasting, Greater Cleveland Partnership, Huntington, and the Nord Family Foundation. Next Tuesday, December 17th, City Club will be at the Happy Dog in the Gordon Square Arts District for a free evening forum talking about the future of downtown Cleveland's lakefront, from Burke to the Browns. That should not be controversial at all. Then, no. Then the City Club will be off for the holiday break before returning on Friday, January 10th with our friend Victor Ruiz, President and CEO of Esperanza Incorporated. You can learn more about these forums and others at cityclub.org. That brings us to the end of today's forum. Thank you all for coming today. Happy holidays to all of you. And thanks again to Connie and Kevin. It's time now to ring the gong. This forum is now adjourned.
For information on upcoming speakers or for podcasts of the City Club, go to cityclub.org.
Production and distribution of City Club forums on IdeaStream Public Media are made possible by PNC and the United Black Fund of Greater Cleveland Incorporated.